From the heartland of America and coast to coast, this is EM Student with Professor Dan Scott.
Without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. Benjamin Franklin. Good morning, I'm Dan Scott, and this is EM Student, and this is Franzi Economy, my co-host. How are you doing this morning, Franzi?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Dan?
I am doing well. It's wet and stormy here, which is, for me and being in the coast, I like it warm and breezy, but it's a good day. So I'm glad to be here on EM Student. Glad to be sharing it with you and the guest. And we have a guest today that has been on the show before. He is the director of the Emergency Management Program. Professionals program at the Emergency Management Institute in Emmitsburg, Maryland. And I've had him on the show before to discuss this program, but there has been some changes, especially with the COVID crisis. And Franzi has designed a series of very challenging questions for him. So we're looking forward to diving into detail on this program, seeing what's changed, what's coming. There's some changes coming. So the continual evolution and innovation for the program. So let's welcome Dr. Kelly Garrett.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you having me back. It's great to be with you again. And Franzi, it's a pleasure to meet you. Looking forward to working with you through this session.
Good morning, and thank you for taking the time to join us.
It's my pleasure.
Franzi, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I was just going to also welcome Dr. Garrett. Really excited to talk to you as well.
So, Dr. Garrett, let's talk about the Emergency Management Professionals Program. Let's talk about, well, number one, what the program is, and then let's kind of transition into how COVID has forced some innovation of the program and expansion.
Okay. Well, Dan, as you know, being a graduate of all three academies, the Emergency Management Professional Program consists of the Basic Academy, which is designed for early career professionals, typically with less than 5 years of experience, and is an open enrollment program. So anyone that has an interest can enroll in any of the courses. The Basic Academy consists of 5 separate courses encompassing 120 hours of classroom time and 45 hours of independent study prerequisites. The mid-career professionals are encouraged to attend the Advanced Academy, which is designed for people with greater than 5 years of experience up to about, say, 12 to 15 years of experience. 4 separate weeks, 160 hours included in that program. And the Executive Academy is designed for senior executives or senior leaders in the emergency management profession. 4 weeks, 128 hours of classroom time. Both the Advanced and the Executive Academies are competitive in that students need to apply and go through a selection process when we convene a selection panel every June, and then select the students that will be coming into the cohort for the next fiscal year. And since I just mentioned the Advanced and Executive Academies, we will be opening the application window for the fiscal year 22 cohorts on April the 1st. So we're about 3 weeks away from accepting the applications. For anyone that's interested in applying to the Advanced or Executive Academies, they can go to training.fema.gov, and from the menu select EMPP, and that will take you to our landing page, which will have a link to the applications site. And last year, we added a new feature to the EMPP program by adding the Public Information Officer program to the academies. So we've got the Advanced and the Master Public Information Officer programs included in EMPP now. The Advanced Public Information Officer program is 1 week, 40 hours. The Master PIO program is 3 weeks and about 136 hours of study. And the MPIO is a competitive selection process as well. So that's it in a nutshell on EMPP.
Thanks, Dr. Garrett. That's a really good overview. I think it's and really great to hear it from you. One thing that I think we were talking about before, and just wanted to as a new student, just kind of wanting to hear a little bit more about the program and how you guys kind of bridge between learning in a classroom and being able to then apply those things in a field. I think that's one thing, I've been learning in a couple classes through some certification programs I've been doing. And it's been really great being able to network and learn from other people in the classroom and things like that. But, I haven't obviously had a job yet as an emergency manager. And so, one thing I'd really like to know about is just basically, how you make that bridge between, where you're learning in the classroom setting and then being able to take that back out into the field and be successful.
Yeah, thanks, Franzi. That's a great question. And we actually get that quite a bit, especially for the Basic Academy, because as I indicated, that's designed for people in your position that may not have worked in the profession before or are new to emergency management. Our courses are really designed to be practitioner courses. So having a fundamental education in emergency management is really helpful because we do talk a little bit about theory in each of our programs, but we really focus on the practical application of emergency management concepts and principles. So our courses are designed in a manner that we introduce a topic or a subject, talk a little bit about the theory or the educational theory behind it, but then the learning activities are built around adult learning theory and are focused on the practical application of through either case studies or capstone exercises or exercises that allow the students to demonstrate the opportunity to function in a role that will apply what they've learned in a classroom environment. So again, for the Basic Academy, don't necessarily have to have a lot of experience as an emergency manager. It certainly helps. And we do get a lot of seasoned emergency managers that come to the Basic Academy simply for additional professional development opportunities. But it's really being able to demonstrate the ability to apply what you've learned in the classroom through those adult learning experiences that we really value.
Okay, awesome. And actually, I did have a quick follow-up question because you did mention, so there's a selection process for the advanced and executive levels of the academy. When it comes to signing up for the basic one, is that also on kind of this like yearly cadence where you have a certain time when you should be enrolling and then be looking to complete your coursework, or how does that work just for other people kind of in my position looking into that?
That's another fantastic question, Franzi. The Basic Academy sort of happens in rotation throughout the year. As I stated, it's an open enrollment course. So based on your schedule and your interests, you can enroll in any one of the 5 courses in the Basic Academy. It just says you've got to complete all 5 of them to be able to graduate. And completing the 45 hours of independent study courses are a prerequisite for the Basic Academy Foundations course. So let's just say, for instance, the next course in the series is the Public Information Basics course, which is 3 days long, and you'd like to apply for that because it fits into your schedule. You can start with that and then go around and complete the rest of the courses. As long as you complete all 5, then you can become a graduate of the Basic Academy.
That's one of the great things about having Franzi on the show is that she's our EM student, right? She's exactly one of the population that we're trying to reach. And as you said, I've gone through all 3 programs, and I'm thinking, because I am a lifelong learner and I promote that on the show, to be a lifelong learner, be continuing for personal professional development. And I was telling you before the show that I would love to go through the academies again, just to continue to see what's changed. You've added multiple things since I've gone through there. One of them being the PIO side of things, but also the HCHIP. HCHIP wasn't part of it when I went through, and HCHIP is one of those courses that leads you into other programs within EMI that is very beneficial to having on that course. But I want to allude to real quick before I lead into my question is as you brought up that there is a prerequisite. There's online learning that goes before you can get in the academy, with the Basic Academy, which is the professional development series. And that's one of the aspects we push because it's self-paced. You're doing it independent study. You're doing it online. You can do it from anywhere you're at. And I push that it is a prerequisite, but it will lead. There's job applications or job descriptions that are saying that at the very minimum have that PDS, which means that someone who wrote it knows what it is. So that's a good thing. Can you talk maybe just a little bit about how that transition from being in classroom?
Yeah, Dan, that's a great setup, actually, because since I came on board with the program, we really looked at the grant language in the emergency management grant program to see what the requirements that our state partners had to meet based on the federal grants, and how we could find a way to streamline the training and development for them without being redundant. And we, as many of you may know, the independent study courses in the 100, 200, 700, and 800 series, which are the ICS and the NIMS courses, are required for the grant program. And so was completion of the professional development series, most of which the content mirrored a lot of the content that we had in the 2 weeks of the Basic Academy Foundations course. So in listening to our training partners around the country, we came to the conclusion that it would make a lot of sense to use the independent study portion of the PDS as the prerequisites for the Basic Academy Foundations course, and then redesign that to be a 1 week, 40-hour course after all the prerequisites are met. So that when students show up for the first day of the Foundations course, the first thing we go through is we break them into student study table groups and go through a process of them demonstrating what they learned through the independent study program by stating what they learned and going through a case study and a presentation exercise of here's what I learned from the professional development series and how that's going to help benefit me in the Foundations course. And then we just layer and scaffold on top of that with the introduction to emergency management in the Foundations course. So it's evolved over time. Again, to try to streamline the process that enables students to not have to replicate unnecessarily course content they may have completed some other way, but also with an eye toward helping all of our state partners, both tribal and territorial partners as well, qualify and meet the criteria for the EMPG grants. And that's one of the reasons why we also added the HCHIP that you alluded to, Dan, because we did the analysis and found that the 2-day emergency management planning course really borrowed heavily from the content for HCHIP. But again, HCHIP is a grant requirement for our training partners. So that's why we incorporated HCHIP into the content for the Basic Academy as well.
That's awesome. It's so great to learn just a little bit more, in depth. And what does HCHIP mean again, just for those of us?
Yes, it's easy for Dan and I to throw around the acronyms because it makes sense to us. But HCHIP is the Homeland Security Exercise and Evaluation Program. So what that does, Francie, is it introduces students to the concept of designing and implementing exercises and the value of using exercises to train the plans that they've developed, and also how to evaluate exercises to determine if they're effective. And in the independent study courses, we've got Introduction to Exercise Planning as one of the independent study courses. So we're really, again, I talked about scaffolding the learning environment. It's really independent study courses introduce the information. So it's providing the information. Then the Basic Academy is the ability to learn the next level and to demonstrate the ability to apply that. And then that sets everyone up for the further learning in the Advanced and Executive Academies as they progress throughout their careers.
That's really awesome. That's actually something that I'm really interested in I'm trying to find an opportunity to be able to take part even in some, and I know right now it's difficult, obviously with COVID, but with these kind of exercises where, it's basically just a full run through like a table exercise or anything like that. Because I think it is just going to be fascinating to see kind of everybody do their job. And it's just one of the things, but for me, I think trying to jump in and wanting to volunteer or wanting to be a part of something like that, obviously there's a lot of pressure when it's an actual emergency and you want to make sure to be getting everything right. So that definitely feels a little crazy to be jumping in. So that just to me is would kind of be one of the next steps that I just think would be really cool to be able to see, how those things actually happen and how things go down, who does what, how everybody works together. Because, I would have to say that kind of teamwork and leadership are two of the things that really kind of inspire me. And I think are things that are crucial to being an effective emergency manager and being able to work with so many different people. I wondered actually if you could talk a little bit about that, because those to me they're much more, kind of soft skills or qualities that people have and gain with experience. And I think obviously to a certain extent there are things you can't necessarily teach in a classroom environment. But I was just curious as as I look to kind of navigate my way through emergency management, especially I feel like emergency managers, when things happen, they just become de facto leaders in whatever community they're working with, obviously, but then being a leader within the emergency management community. I just wondered if you could talk about that, both in the, in the setting of the academies, but also just in your experience, because obviously you're a leader in the field as well.
Sure, thanks. Great comments, Franzi. And we didn't have a chance to talk a whole lot before we started today's session, but you hit on something near and dear to my heart with leadership development, because that was the focus of my doctoral studies, was actually aligning leadership development with organizational strategy management. So I took that approach with the programs as we came in and really tried to design the curriculum throughout all three academies so that we can have a continuum of learning for emergency managers throughout their careers. And a big part of that is leadership development, because leadership development is really an ongoing process, and we learn it in many different ways. Most learning occurs in informal environments. So only about 10% of learning, especially for leadership development, occurs in a formal classroom environment. 20% of it occurs through informal opportunities, like listening to podcasts like our show today, or attending conferences or reading articles. 70% of it comes from experience on the job. And everybody, based on their background and experience, has leadership skills and characteristics that they can bring to the table. But as you indicated, a lot of people may not have had the opportunity to have the experience to apply them in the appropriate context. So we take an approach throughout the academies in EMPP that we really focus on what we label leadership acumen, which is leadership development. So we start with the basic academy and introducing some basic leadership concepts so that people can, first of all, learn how to lead themselves, or depending on the size of the jurisdiction in which those folks may work, they may need to lead teams or lead projects. So it's really entry-level leadership. And it's great that you use the term soft skills, because I like to say we categorize them as soft skills, but if they're so soft, why are they so hard to learn and so hard to apply? And that's part of being a human being and engaging with human beings. It's a soft skill because it's something that has to evolve over time, and experience plays a big part in that. But if you can't lead yourself as an independent operator, as an emergency manager, say you work in a jurisdiction where you may be the only person that is responsible for disaster response and emergency management, you've got to be able to lead yourself. If a disaster strikes, you may need to lead a team or be in charge of projects. So the entry level, the basic level, is learning to do those things. Then in the advanced academy, we really introduce the concept of leading teams, leading larger projects, but also leading organizations. As you may move up in your career, and now there may be a staff, or there are other people that you've got to interact with in a jurisdiction that are in law enforcement, firefighters, public works. But the emergency manager needs to be able to work with those folks and lead projects and teams, but help lead the organization. And then finally, as we transition from the Executive Advanced Academy to the Executive Academy, it's really, again, leading organizations at a higher level, but also learning to lead in the profession. And all of that, I think, requires different skill sets and different levels of understanding. So it is part of that leadership development process, Franzi. But I also think that part of it comes from emergency managers as a profession understanding that we are influential leaders. We may not always have the formal position authority to say, we're going to do this as an organization, or we're going to respond this way. So it's really understanding how to use the influential leadership skills of being viewed as an expert, so you can apply expert powers and influential leadership, or being viewed as a leader because we know how to get things done in an organizational context, so that we can use referent leadership power, that people will refer to us as leaders and understand that we're people that know how to get things done and can successfully engage others to work as a team to be able to do that as well. So hopefully that answered your question.
It did. Yeah, that was awesome. And I also love what you're kind of alluding to towards the end about just different types of leadership and why people might come to you and look to you to be a leader. So definitely going to do more research on that and go find out some more information on those topics.
Great.
And that's and that was, that's a great, it's a great point. And that's, one of the topics of my dissertation is going to be leadership and decision making and ethical leadership. So that's an aspect of leadership, and I love how you pointed out that it's a skill. You have to learn it, you have to practice it, you have to develop it, and it's one of those things that if you're not doing it constantly, it can. It's not one of those things you just walk into a room and you're automatically a leader. You gotta learn how to do that, and it's more of being a person of influence. But I like that point was very greatly made. Thank you, Dr. Garrett. But I'm going to talk about this last year. It's been a year since Corona has really started targeting our economy, but there's been some really good transitions. I've mentioned this before. Corona brought with it a lot of negative, but it brought with it some positive too. It brought with it some innovation. So let's talk about the transition for some of the EMI courses or the EMI professional program into the online setting, and how that's affected the program and how it may be playing part moving forward.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Obviously, our student experience in the academies is really built around developing professional networks and interacting with other students so you can share experiences and learn from each other. And when we had to stop doing in-person classes last spring and summer, that really kind of took away from the opportunity to do that. So we transitioned into the virtual environment to be able to offer all of our academy courses in a virtual environment. But we didn't want to lose that student experience of being able to engage with classmates and learn from each other. So we were very deliberate and intentional in the way we developed our online courses. And we spent most of last summer, starting probably from June through December of this year, again, to be deliberate and intentional in how we wanted to build those experiences. We convened a number of focus groups with our instructors and faculty members in all three academies to identify how we could best transition the content of the courses into a virtual environment. And I'm proud to say that we were able to launch the first virtual course, our K-103 Emergency Planning course in the Basic Academy, in the virtual environment during the International Association of Emergency Managers Reimagined Annual Conference in November. And since then, we've been able to expand to the point that we're regularly offering the Homeland Security Exercise and Evaluation Program, HCHIP, in a virtual environment, the planning course in a virtual environment. We've also recently transitioned our Science for Disasters course into the virtual environment, and we're getting ready to launch the Foundations course in the Public Information Office or the Public Information Basics course in the virtual environment over the course of the next 3 weeks. So the Basic Academy will be totally virtual until we're able to safely get back into the classroom. We've been able to launch this year's cohort of the Advanced Academy in a virtual environment, and we're in the process of actually catching up with the courses we had to suspend from last year's cohorts in the Advanced Academy in a virtual environment as well. So all 4 courses in the Advanced Academy are able to be delivered virtually, and we were able to deliver the initial offering of the Executive Academy 2 weeks ago in a virtual environment. And again, we knew it wasn't going to be ideal because it's unless you've got a pre-existing relationship similar to the one that you and I have, Dan, it's not easy to share in a virtual environment. I mean, Franzi and I are just getting to know each other today, but I think we've made an initial connection. So it can be done in a virtual environment, but it doesn't quite replicate exactly what happens in the classroom, but as close as we can get with the tools that we have so that students that are interested in the academies don't have to wait until we're able to safely get back in the classroom to have the advantage of learning in any of the academies.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, ultimately, yeah, having the online aspect of things, it can be convenient for those who can't travel, and it's convenient for the aspect that we could continue operations while we were going through the crisis. But there really is no. I mean, for me, one of the main reasons I went to these was for the networking, to build my network, to learn from others, to build it's one of those things that in emergency management, it's one of the reasons why I love this profession, is if I don't know how to do something or I need something, I can reach out to someone who's done it and say, hey, I'm doing this. Can you help me? And they're like, they just throw stuff at you. I've done this, use it. And it's amazing the connections you make. And it's harder to do that especially if you're already an introvert and you can just sit back and not engage. And that's one of the issues I have. I am one of those guys that I would sit back and just, unless I'm in the classroom and I've got people around me and we're having conversations and we're meeting people on break, and that really does build you up as an EM, but it builds you up as a professional, builds you your reputation in the industry, and the learning that takes place outside the classroom is even more valuable sometimes than what happens inside the classroom. And the virtual, it's a great tool to have, but I don't think it ever really beat, as far as emergency management goes, in the classroom and having those conversations and building those relationships and those friendships and you really do build lifelong friendships. I mean, I've met you and I've grown our relationship, but I've got people from the Basic Academy that I met years and years ago that we still talk on a weekly basis because we made friendships in that thing. So in those academies. And so it is really a great thing. And I'm glad to hear that we're trying to transition back, but it is good for those too. There are those around the country who they can't get away. They cannot get away from their office. They're a single person entity in their jurisdiction, and they're like, well, it's so hard for me to get away, but I can step away in my office and take a few hours to take a course. The HCHIP course is really good that way because it only takes half a day, several days, through the week. So that's a great aspect of things too for our listeners out there. If you're interested in those courses, you can take them, and you can take them on half a day. You're not taking your whole day away from your work. So that's a good aspect thing. I appreciate you bringing that. But kind of transition. There's been a lot of changes coming, and we have. So I want to allude to the fact that the Advanced Academy used to be referred to as the Leadership Academy. Am I right there?
That is correct. It actually started out as the Leadership Academy probably 8 years ago now.
And it transitioned to so you get to ultimately you can see that the purpose behind developing that was to develop leadership skills in emergency management. But let's talk about moving forward. We talked about previously before the show is that we got some main changes coming to the Executive Academy, which what I love hearing. So let's talk about that. Can you tell the audience about don't go too much detail. You want them to go there, right? So let's let them know. Let's let them know what's coming.
Sure, I'll try to do a teaser for the Executive Academy to pique everyone's interest. But first, I want to acknowledge my dear friend and thought partner, Dr. Carol Swiak, who had a comment while we were chatting, and she indicated that she thought that the Executive Academy virtual offering went well. Carol is one of our faculty members with the Executive Academy, as well as a graduate of the Executive Academy. So we use her expertise as a troubleshooter for the program, and she helps to keep me straight and on task as well. So one of to your point, Dan, as the Executive Academy has evolved over time, we found that we really wanted to enhance, again, the student experience of functioning as executive leaders in organizations and to lead the profession. So we've developed 4 weekly themes for the Academy. So each week has a theme and one builds on the other. We start the first week of the Executive Academy with examining emergency management policy and doctrine. So we really introduce the concepts to challenge students to think critically, to understand biases and how biases may impact their ability to think critically and make decisions. We talk about ethics in emergency management, presenting for effect, and really understanding or introducing the concept of why do we think the way we think and why do we do what we do in the emergency management profession. And particularly as executives, because executives at the executive level can influence policy and doctrine. The second week is the one that you and I were chatting about that we're able to launch, hopefully be able to launch this May. We wanted to do it last year, but got postponed. The theme of the week is leading in complex systems. And it's really understanding all of the various systems and the complexity of emergency management and disaster response and how these systems work in harmony with each other. But our campus is only 15 minutes away from the Gettysburg battlefield. So students that live in various parts of the country that never really have the opportunity to come back to our area, if they know anything about military history or are interested in history at all, would like to have the opportunity to visit Gettysburg, but we simply don't want it to turn into a student field trip. So design the concept of what if we looked at the Battle of Gettysburg as a disaster that struck a community and use that as the context for the Executive Academy. So we're going to introduce in the second week of Leading Complex Systems the concept of the disaster at Gettysburg, using the backdrop of the 3-day Battle of Gettysburg as a disaster that befell that community, and what we as emergency management executives would have to deal with in responding to that crisis. So that's really the focus of the second weekend, and a new addition to the Academy from the time that you were able to go through. Week 3 is interpreting the contemporary emergency management environment, because I think we found over time that emergencies have evolved and disasters have evolved, so they aren't necessarily as straightforward as they used to be. And the portfolio of responsibilities for emergency managers have expanded. And the pandemic is an example of that. Emergency managers getting involved in the community response to the pandemic, and now vaccine distribution. So the mission set for the contemporary emergency management environment has expanded. So we look at examining or interpreting what that may mean in today's world. And then the fourth week, the theme is really focused on creating a community of stakeholders. So who are the stakeholders that are affected by what we do as emergency managers in our community, and who are the stakeholders that we need to work with to be able to help make our communities more resilient should a disaster befall the community, how we respond to and recover from those communities and be more resilient should the worst thing that could happen to our community actually happen. So that's really how we've redesigned the Executive Academy over the last couple of years.
That's awesome. And you think just let me, I'm going to close out by saying just thank you for sharing the time. Thank you for coming on and sharing these updates. And I've said it, I am a huge proponent of these programs. I think if you're out there and you're listening, take advantage, kind of do some self-evaluation, know where you are, where you stand, and look at these programs. Even if I was in emergency management for almost 5 years, and I still went through the basic. And that's what led me to where I am, today, and led me through all 3 programs. And you will not regret your decision to go to these programs. So thank you for coming on and sharing that. Dr. Seawack, I met her at the Executive Academy, and I'm not only, I get to view her as a friend and a colleague and a mentor. She's a celebrity to me. She is amazing. So, and she's coming on the show later this before the summer to talk about a few things. We sit on the ethics committee together for emergency management practitioner and education ethics, building that code of ethics. And she's a celebrity to me. She gets me tongue tied because I'm so influenced by her, and so she's on. I'm glad she's watching. So thank you for watching and being a part. Her and Dr. Garrett present at IAEM, which is the International Association of Emergency Managers, which I'm looking forward to that again this year. So I'm looking forward to the presentation that comes with that. You guys work very closely together, and that's where I was able to build our relationships was through that. So once again, just thank you for coming. Let me close out the show by saying, like today's episode, share today's episode, go on LinkedIn, follow the EM student page, go on Facebook, follow the EM Weekly page. We're going to be creating our own group out of there. If you're on Clubhouse, please go to Clubhouse and follow myself, which is D Scott 1981. Follow Todd T DeVoe. Follow Franzi Economy. And we're going to be opening up more rooms in there. We're going to be expanding our network and our topic areas, and getting, hopefully be able to engage with our listeners and understand what people are wanting to know. We also go to Crisis Cafe. We have a new thing on there that we're launching today, which is a book club, to go on there and follow a book and actually go through a book club. It's an online book club that you can go on there, sign up. And if you go on there and sign up, you actually get 50% off. So go on to Crisis Cafe to sign up. I'm Dan Scott, and I'll talk to you soon.